Bob, you and I talk about a lot of things. You are one of the smartest people I interview, and conceptually, you understand some of the big problems of our economy and our society. But I want you to help my viewers understand something that's not all that conceptual. 880,000 people filing for first-time unemployment benefits, which means they're not the same 880,000 people who filed for benefits last week or the week before. So as much as Donald Trump is trumpeting the idea that we are putting more people back on the payrolls than at any time in history, these numbers say otherwise.
That's exactly right, Ali. In fact, we have right now the worst unemployment crisis we have had in this country probably since the Great Depression of the 1930s. It is far worse than the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, in terms of the numbers of people, but also in terms of the extent of the damage, the hardship. It's not just a matter of stimulating the economy. It's not just simply a matter of getting the economy going again. It's a matter of actually providing a lot of people, millions of Americans, with disaster assistance, disaster relief, so that they can actually survive over the next several months.
Yeah. Calling it stimulus it may be the wrong thing. Bob, you know, I've been out on the road since the George Floyd protests, and I stayed on through the election, and now I'm going every week to different places in America, and I'm talking to small businesses and individuals about how they're going to make it. They're excited. There's a vaccine there, but we're talking about next spring at the earliest, probably next summer, and maybe next fall. Heather Long wrote in the Washington Post, the nation's poverty rate has risen at the fastest pace ever this year after aid for the unemployed declined. Poverty is now higher than it was at the beginning of the year, a warning sign of the long-lasting effects of a deep recession. Since June, poverty has risen the most for Black Americans, up 3.1 percentage points, 1.4 million people, and for Americans with high school degrees or less, up 5.1 percentage points, or 5.2 million people. About 2.3 million children under 17 have fallen into poverty since June. We're talking about poverty, we're talking about food insecurity, and we're talking about homelessness in the richest, most prosperous country on earth. Bob?
And also the richest that has ever been on earth. Ali, the thing that actually I find very, very difficult to convey to people who are not in poverty, who are not in hunger, who are not actually experiencing on the ground a lot of the abstract numbers that we are throwing around here, is that we're talking fundamentally about people, about lives, about children, about people who may not be able to, in fact, some of them not even able to put food on their tables right now, who are waiting in food lines to pick up baskets of food, boxes of food that are extending from miles and miles, not just in our inner cities, not just in areas that are traditionally poor areas, but in suburbs, in areas that are rural areas, people who have never had to stand in bread lines, in food lines before. This is a human tragedy that is unfolding. We cannot simply wait until next summer, until COVID is behind us. We have got to enable people to live right now and live well and enable their families to live well, because this is a national crisis. We have not had, again, I want to emphasize, a recession this deep since the 1930s, Great Depression. We have not had a public health crisis this serious since the great pandemic of 1918. We are in a unique and horrible situation right now. Many people watching this program don't have to be told because they are experiencing this on the ground. But our leaders in Washington apparently do need to be told because they are not getting it.